Well, welcome to a very different episode of UThink. Now, usually I'm the one asking the questions, but today I'm turning the tables. Over the past year, I've had the privilege of sitting across from some extraordinary people, listening to their stories of courage, leadership, resilience, and purpose. Yet one question has been asked of me more than any other. Rose, when are you going to share your story? So today is that day. Joining me is someone who is incredibly special to me. What began as a professional relationship has grown into a genuine friendship built on shared values, plenty of laughter, and a passion for improving literacy outcomes for young people. Asheeka Nand is an exceptional educator, researcher, and literacy advocate. Together, we've had the privilege of presenting at conferences across Australia and internationally, sharing our work and our belief that language has the power to change lives. There is no one else I would rather have leading this conversation. Today isn't about achievement or titles. It's about the journey. We'll talk about growing up as daughters of migrants, starting school without speaking English, the teachers who shaped our lives, for better or for worse, and how those experiences ignited a lifelong passion for education, equity, and helping every young person find their voice. We'll also explore the moments that challenged me, the people who believed in me before I believed in myself, and why creating UThink has become one of the most meaningful projects of my life. So for this episode, I'm swapping seats. I'm handing over the microphone to my dear friend Asheeka. I hope that somewhere in this conversation, you'll find a part of your own story reflected in mine. Let's get started. Today's episode is proudly supported by the Styling Crew, specialists in property styling and staging that help transform houses into homes buyers will remember forever. Oh my God. Finally, I get you on the couch. Yes? Yes. We've known each other a long time.
A very long time.
And you're one of my favourite people.
Oh, you're one of my favourite people.
I know. I'm not going to cry so early in this bloody episode. We actually met a long time ago. Over 20 years ago, we were both English teachers at a beautiful school in the Westmead area, all boys. And we were both at the beginning of our teaching careers, and we were both pretty mad about making an impact. And I think we shared that connection straight away, that passion for teaching English, that passion for wanting to make an impact.
And the thirst and the drive to achieve the best outcomes for our students.
Yeah. And we also, but apart from that, I mean, it wasn't just that connected us. I think what connected us was the fact that we had a shared, similar personal journey in terms of our backgrounds.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I was born and bred in the Blacktown area. That sounds horrible, born and bred. Born and raised. Let me just rephrase that. I was born and raised in the Blacktown area, and I'm very proud of my roots in terms of my growth and education. And I went to a fairly Anglo-Saxon school, and there was, small amounts of migrant children there, even though the area was quite heavily populated by migrants who were moving in to areas that were affordable. I think you had a similar background.
Yes. Well, I was actually born in Fiji, and then my family migrated here around possibly when I was about 8 years old. It was such a long time ago. And of course, coming from Fiji, it's a country that was in political upheaval at that point in time. So we had moved to the Fairfield, Liverpool area. And similar to you, I grew up in an area that had predominantly fair-skinned people, okay? A large population of Italians and Croatians and Serbians. But in terms of colour, I would have to say that my brother and I were the only people who looked like us.
Yeah, I would say the same of the Blacktown area, actually, Asheeka. I think that I don't remember. I remember migrants, Polish, Maltese, Italian, a few Filipino.
Yeah, we used to have a few Vietnamese because obviously.
But I wouldn't say a large proportion of the Asian district or Asian continent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would have been tough.
It was certainly unusual. I don't think I realised it was tough until perhaps I was maybe about 11 or 12. It was a stranger's experience. We were, for some reason, colouring in Year 5. And the person next to me said something along the lines of, "You're black."
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Even
that
back then.
yeah, it was unusual because, one of the things, as you know, about students who come from English as an additional language background, sometimes you can be very literal.
Yeah. But also children in general, when they're very little, everything is very it's stated in plain fact, isn't it? Like, it's not like they're trying to be racist in any way, but that's what they probably would have heard, or that's what they know.
Yeah, I think it perhaps was a learnt thing, and I'll circle back to the learnt thing. But I must say, when they stated "you're black," I was colouring in. I picked up the colour black, picked up the colour brown, and proceeded to explain to this person, educate her on the difference of a brown pencil and a black pencil,
Oh, God,
and
you are
how
courageous. Already feisty.
um, so yeah. So I think it's the first time that I actually became aware that I'm different.
Yeah. See, for me, it wasn't the colour of my skin. It was definitely my hair colour was different because a lot of little kids that were at the school that I was at in South Blacktown were often blonde and blue-eyed or fair-skinned and fair in terms of their appearances. And of course, migrant children are often quite tanned or dark-haired, brown eyes. So it was a little bit of you stood out. You didn't look like a lot of the kids that you went to school with. But I think for me, it was actually more than that. I think it was culturally different. My sandwiches were different. My weekends were different. The rules around what I was allowed to do on the weekend were different. And I
And
think the more that I was different based on these cultural expectations and rules that my family had, and also our rituals, which I cherish now. But back as a child, I remember thinking, God, I don't want another salami sandwich. Please don't torture me with another salami sandwich. I didn't realize how much my parents would have paid for that.
yeah,
We're hardworking migrant parents. But I think it isolated me.
yeah,
And those things made it really hard. I was picked on, called all sorts of names. And then I didn't have the language, not really the confidence in language to fight back. Not then.
yeah. I suppose in Fiji, English was the national language. So eventually, when you went to school, you were educated in English. So in that respects, going from a year 5 class in Fiji to a year 3 class in Australia, it was a little bit strange going from learning your times tables and
Mm.
starting algebra to learning to color in between lines. Um, it was, I guess, there was some sort of an assumption on the part of people who enrolled us in that college, in that school, sorry, that perhaps my brother and I would come with some sort of a deficit around language, which we did not have.
Yeah, well, lucky you, because I definitely started with a deficit. Both my parents went to work and maintained that after I was born. I was the youngest of three. The two siblings ahead of me, my brothers, beautiful, Joe and Max, they were born in Italy, so they came out. Um, Went to school. Obviously, they were 5 and 6 years older than me, so they went to school a bit, and got the language a bit faster. But I stayed at home. Mum and Dad didn't really trust daycare centres or preschool centres, so I stayed at home and was initially looked after by my grandmother, who then went back to Italy because she really missed the homeland, and then by the next door neighbour, who was also a nonna, who became very close to my family, and they ended up being my godparents. But but I didn't speak English at all until I went to school, so there was a deficit. But with that deficit, it wasn't so much they didn't even bother to see if I had aptitude. That's what annoyed me most now when I look back. They just assumed I couldn't speak, so I was dumb. Plain and simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally see um, how that would make a young person feel. Um, I suppose my journey's been a little bit different. We did know English. I also had two parents who were working. They were working all the time. They were gone from 7 in the morning. They'd come back at 7 p.m. And it was hard because it was just my brother and I. Alvin, if you're listening, hello. Um, and what it did was it certainly, I suppose, galvanized us as a family unit. So we knew that mum and dad were working. Our job was to make sure we get to school on time, come home on time, be there when the phone rings, and do the menial things around the house to help your family out. I suppose one of the things that perhaps gave me that little bit of advantage in terms of English language and vocab development was my father. My mum and dad had a rule. Being of a migrant background, they used to have a strong accent, and they always spoke about the discrimination they were experiencing when they went for job interviews at that point in time.
Which still happens today.
Yes, and so they came up with a rule. My mum and dad would always speak to us in our Indian language, so Hindi, but my brother and I had to reply in English in order to help us develop our English skills. Eventually, as we grew older, we didn't have a carer, so we had to be at home by ourselves. And mum and dad were always paranoid about us getting kidnapped or getting lost. So, so to keep us entertained, they had bought a set of encyclopedia. And for our holiday activities, our job was to read it.
God help us. Wow. Okay.
It's because when they used to take us to the library, my brother and I had a very specific interest in animals, dinosaurs, all things natural, and eventually the library ran out of books.
Yeah. Well, my parents didn't really even know about the library, not really. It was only, I think, when I got to high school, and obviously the school had a proper library. I'm sure the primary school had one too, but my recollection, unfortunately, of my primary school, which is sad in so many ways, was isolation. I have a lot of memories, but most of it playing on my own or playing with one other migrant child. I had a really amazing imagination, and I think I still do. But I used to be able to create worlds, and I lived in them, and that was my safe place, to create these imaginary worlds out in the ovals, and we could play for hours in them. But I don't remember the library as a place where I first found my vocab. It was more towards the end of schooling for me. I have two major stories that really define me as a person, to why we're both teachers. I'm a teacher, and I know you're a teacher today. And that is that in Year 9, I had an English teacher, named to be, not announced.
I think we've got one of those. Everyone has one of those.
Yeah, but she was cruel. She was really over teaching kids back then. And many years later, I encountered her, would you believe, when I was working in the diocese as a teaching educator. And I couldn't believe she was still actually teaching. She should never have been allowed in classrooms, really, in that she was so negative all the time towards kids. Didn't matter if you were migrant or non-migrants, whatever it was. She just was an angry soul. But she really had a sarcastic nature about her way of responding, and it burned into my soul when she said I would always be a child of migrants and I would never succeed in anything I achieved because of that cultural background, because of that as a deficit. And I was humiliated in front of my peers in that lesson. And I think at that moment I had a fight or flight, situation. And I fought back in that I thought, no, you can't define me. I don't think I said it, but I think I felt it. And there was a little bit of me thinking, well, I will go to that Year 11 and 12 school, even if you think I can't make it into Year 11 and 12, I'm going to go. I'm going to prove you wrong. And then when I was in Year 11, I met my English teacher, name will be announced. Her name was Kathy, or is, I don't know if she's still alive, but Kathy Broughton, who was young at the time, I think early 5-6 years of teaching, just sensational. The sort of person I know I've modelled myself on, in that passionate about her subject, had a real belief in every one of her students. And she just said to me, you have to read more. The more you read, the more you will be exposed to vocab. And the more you do that, the more you'll be able to comprehend, and the more you'll be able to write, which has formed the basis of my deep, deep belief that vocab is the door that opens up all of your literacy, success and skill. So for me, it was those two defining moments. And becoming a teacher was a very proud moment, not just for me, but for my parents, who were also told regularly that your children, they're not going to amount to anything, because I suppose they just saw us as not having the capability because of our language. It's not even a delay. What would you call it? Because people call it a language delay, but I actually think it's, I don't know.
I think it has to do with exposure. So coming back to what my father said, which is to become better at English, you need to become comfortable with the words. You need to actually learn the language, but the intonation and the accent. And you need to basically, he said, expand your vocab. To this day, he's retired now. every morning he will get up and he will send me a text message with a new word that he's managed to discover. My brother has 2 children now, and they will get a text message from him on the daily with a list of words.
I love that.
And it's a passion that he has, and I suppose it's part of where my interest in words come from, so definitely he would be a strong source. My second source, very similar to yours. I had a lovely Year 7 teacher. She went on to be a university lecturer, Dr. Tanya Fofolia. She's a Year 7 teacher who always believed in me, unlike my Year 10 teacher who told me I should drop out in Year 10 and become a hairdresser because that's what, quote unquote, people of my kind.
Yeah. See, there's a
most
thread there,
suited to.
right? There was all this
Yes.
belief that we were a group and we had to sit into this stereotype or this class of achievement, and we weren't allowed to come out of that achievement or that level because that would be either threatening to them or unexpected. How could they possibly achieve? They don't
Yeah.
speak our language. It's not that I couldn't. I still believe that little migrant girl that I think she lives deep within me, is one of the reasons I fight so hard now, because they really tried to cement a very limited outlook for me. And I suspect for many children who were children of migrants in that era, 1960s, 1970s, I think even earlier than that, but certainly in the eras that I grew up, I
Yeah.
could see that happening. And a lot of the kids I went to school with didn't go into year 11 and 12. A lot of them did leave and become hairdressers or went to
Yep.
secretary school. Dare I say that word, secretary school?
You're showing your age, Rose.
Yes, I'm showing my age. But also, we've evolved, haven't we? But that's what they did. They went and worked, or they went and found skills that they could, train into. And I think that my parents, they were hopeful. I know that both my brothers left school, went and did trades, and they're very successful in what they did and do still today. But I think my parents didn't know whether we were going to ever make it to university because around them, not many of the children of their friends were making university gains or entrances. And so when I went, I think they were quietly hoping that I would stick it out.
Yeah.
You know my story. Right at the beginning of my university degree, my brother got sick with leukemia. That threw me for a 6 because it really disrupted my study pattern. As a family, we grouped in pretty tightly. Money was, tight, so we had to all work to help pay for his treatments. It was a tough, tough period. But I just thought, no, I'm not going to let life's challenges, stuff this up for me. I really wanted to be a teacher. I think I'm so proud of saying that to people, that I'm an educator, I'm a teacher, because I think more than anything, it's what I always wanted to be. So, I think I stuck it out. I'm sure my lecturers who may ever, if ever you listen to this podcast, will go, oh, I remember her. Yeah.
I suppose for me, teaching is the one thing I know from the moment I stood up in front of, it was a prac, it was observational prac, at Liverpool Boys, in front of a Year 10 class. It was the only thing I knew I was good at because it came naturally. And to this day, actually standing up in front of students in any classroom is something that is, for me, profoundly rewarding.
Yeah.
You
I would
know,
agree.
yeah, whether it's happening here in Australia or on my adventures in Germany.
Yes, we'll get to that now. I think that's a really good segue.
Yeah, but it's just something that I just feel that in my bones that you were born to be a natural teacher.
Yeah. I look, you and I shared that passion. We worked together for about 5 or 6 years.
Yes.
And then we went our own way. Off we went on our journeys of, our careers. But we stayed close as friends because we had that connection and we had that passion, and we developed a bond that, as you do sometimes with teachers in your schools, that when you're working with them closely. And we're actually part of a little group of mad little English teachers that regularly meet up and have dinner and go away. But you and I, the one thing that we continued to share a passion for and we really were focused on was the development around literacy.
Yeah.
And I think it comes from both of our stories, growing up, having those challenges, people putting barriers up against us or putting up those guardrails, and we wanting to, break them down and prove to them that you can't stop someone regardless of their colour, their culture, their religion, where they were born, what era they were born in. Really, every human has the right to succeed.
Yeah.
And it comes with our ability to communicate, to articulate ourselves. And so we kept in contact, and about 10 years ago, would it be about 10 years ago, I said to you something along the lines of, I'm going to sort of start looking at, maybe presenting at conferences. Yes?
Oh, yeah. You actually, I was thinking about this on the way down. We've actually done, we did the one in Brisbane.
Yes.
That literacy conference.
That was our first conference together. That was a pretty wild adventure.
Yeah, and then we went down to Canberra.
We did. So that was our first foray into conferences. We weren't presenting. We were pretty much attendees. Oh, no, Canberra, we presented.
Yeah, it was about podcasting, funnily enough.
Look at the irony of that. I wish I could go back and hear that one again.
Yeah, it's when our school had gone, they were going Apple laptops, and we came across, was it GarageBand, I think it was?
Yeah, yes. And getting kids to express themselves using like GarageBand and
the multimodal ways.
And multimodal ways, yes.
So I remember that really well.
Look at us, innovators.
way back when. And then I suppose more recently, our work around the vocab project.
Yeah. So then I reached back out to you and said, really been doing some interesting things at the schools I've been working at, and noticing that I think this was the moment, the epiphany for me in literacy came, obviously working a lot of boys' schools. Mm-hmm. That's number one. Having a lot of years in a boys' school context makes a huge difference. And I found that boys, if you started a lesson by just saying we're going to learn to write, sentences and paragraphs, you immediately saw the disengagement in their eyes, in their body language. They just didn't understand. They didn't value it, really. They didn't understand the value of it, so they just, became passive-aggressive, or in some cases quite aggressive.
Yeah.
And so I remember trying to do a whole literacy approach at Parramatta Marist, where we first met, and it was successful to some extent. I think I got into different areas and really worked with teachers, the heads of department at the time, getting them to think about their literacy, their text type, their subject-specific discipline. But I realised that once I left, it didn't stay.
Yeah, I think that part was disappointing, because I actually did like the structure that you had implemented, where every teacher is a teacher of literacy, way back in the early 2000s.
Yeah. But I realised it was driven by me.
Yes.
At that time, once I moved on, the school pretty much didn't have anyone else that was willing to step into that role, and eventually it just falls back off, your programs. They stop thinking about literacy from that point of view. So the next school I went to, I started dabbling in the work of vocab because it was easy. The moment you expanded a child's vocab or their depth or their repertoire and you gave them some new words, you could see them light up. You could just see them go, oh, okay, that gave me a little bit of an empowerment. That gave me an opportunity to communicate a little bit better. And it was easy. Mm-hmm. I'm going to come back to that, because actually developing your vocab is not difficult.
It's not.
And so what I found, and this is what I said to you, was actually I found like this little a way around a literacy program in a school. If we can get the kids to own the vocab development,